Welcome to another episode of Q&A Friday on Fly Fish University TV. In case you didn't know, each and every Friday, I, Jordan Ulrich, take your fly fishing and fly tying questions, answer them to the best of my capability, and we have a great time doing it. Before we get started on this episode, I'd love to invite you to download a free copy of my book, 7 Steps to Fly Fishing Success. This is a book in which we break down some of the most common fly fishing mistakes that you can make and exactly what to do about them to shorten your learning curve and make fly fishing a more enjoyable sport. I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you have questions, drop them at flyfishuniversity.com/questions. I look forward to today, and I hope that you get immense value from it. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Q&A Friday. My name is Jordan Ulrich, I'm your host, and this is one of my favorite times of the week. Get to take your fly fishing and fly tying questions from people all around the world and take my best shot at them. Anyways, I won't lie, I get questions all the time that I can't answer that I'll sit and write I'll write some of my friends in the fishing industry and be like, hey, can you tell me about sweep lines or washing lines, because I'm not allowed to fish more than one fly in British Columbia or something along those lines. So anyways, super excited about today. Again, if you've got questions, you can drop them at flyfishuniversity.com/questions, and we are going to dive right in. So question number 1 comes from Matt in St. Louis, Missouri, which is cool because nobody from St. Louis, Missouri has ever written me before. My cousin actually went to school there. He says, for somebody that's just getting started out, it feels overwhelming when I realize how much I have to learn. Any tips to keep going through these early stages? Matt, that's such a good question because I know exactly how you feel. I was there, and I remember just looking at friends of mine that really seemed to know what they were doing and just going like, wow, what makes the difference? And almost being embarrassed at times with how little I knew. Pretty low point for me was when I actually turned down the opportunity to go fishing with somebody because I knew for sure that they were just so much more knowledgeable than I was. And you know what I would say, Matt, is actually embrace those early stages, because that's like the most fun, is putting those pieces of the puzzle together. And just so you know, like, you never hit a point where you feel like you know enough. You shouldn't anyways. So like, I've been fly fishing for some time, and it's pretty much been the primary, the bottom line, the basis of my career since the time I was 17. And I pretty much spend most of my free time watching YouTube videos or reading blog posts on how to learn more about fly fishing. So never lose that hunger to learn, but I do understand that it can be frustrating at start. Okay, so what I would say, Matt, is definitely you got to do a few things. Okay, this is something that I teach in a course called the Fly Fishing Fundamentals Deep Dive that was designed to help introduce people to fly fishing and shorten their learning curve. And this is also something that I talk about in my book, 7 Steps to Fly Fishing Success. You need a solid foundation. Okay, you need a solid foundation of skills that you can then layer new skills on top of, but there's a few things that if you don't master these, fly fishing is going to be really hard, and if you do, fly fishing is going to be very easy in comparison, right? So the first few things, just off the top of my head, they're going to be your equipment, right? Your equipment, you got to have it dialed in. You got to have it dialed in right from the get-go, because you can have a really good casting stroke and equipment that is just totally mismatched. It's worth just investing your money one time into equipment that's going to serve you. You can always upgrade, but really, this is so important. You have to make sure that the equipment that you're outfitting yourself with is appropriate for A, your skill level, and B, your casting stroke, and C, the types of fisheries that you spend the most time on. Okay. The next few things would be like your casting stroke. Take a casting lesson from a professional who knows what they're doing. And the thing that really changed the game for me is surround yourself with people that really know what they're doing way beyond your own capacity. And what that's going to do is it's going to train you and teach you really quickly how to just rapidly improve your skill set. And fly fishing is so much more fun when you spend time with people that know exactly what they're doing. So anyways, I'll drop some links below to some resources for you that can hopefully help you out. Number 2, Kelly from Oregon says, we have a couple lakes that will continue to fish through the winter time, but its fishing seems to get really slow. Any help would be appreciated. I love your podcast. Well, that's very nice, Kelly. Thank you. So I won't let it get to my head. So where I live, we don't really have a lot of lake fishing takes place through the winter time, but there are a lot of places throughout North America, especially south of the border, that do have great lake fishing through the wintertime, or at least have some lake fishing through the wintertime. I definitely get pretty stir crazy. By the time October, November comes around, I'm pretty done with it, but then by the time like January, February, March, by March, I'm like, oh, I've got every millimeter of my boat polished. So what I would say is that the reason that fishing probably slows down is that the metabolic rate, depending what your water temperature is going to hit, the metabolic rate of a rainbow trout will drop substantially once you get into really, really cold water, especially like water below 40 degrees, pretty much will start to shut down a little bit. You will see like as the air temperature warms, you get some warm spells, they might go into a feed for a little while. The other thing is that they're pretty much just relying, most of the time on those residual staple food sources, scuds, leeches, immature damsels. And so definitely what I would say is fish low and slow, fish close to the bottom, and target, spend most of your time in the shallower water, like less than 15 feet deep. And I would definitely befriend your strike indicator techniques at this time of year, because you're going to be fishing things like leeches, things like chironomid larvae, some shrimp, and stuff that's available to them all throughout the year. But definitely through these really cold months, I would say fish those staple food sources, zooplankton being another one, close to the bottom, and fish them in a speed that matches, how slow these trout are moving. The nice thing with a strike indicator or a bobber is that you can keep it in their window of vision for an indefinite amount of time. They don't have to move very quickly or expend a lot of their energy to chase down your presentation. So anyways, I hope that helps. And finally, Joey from San Francisco says, love San Francisco, by the way, best Chinese food and best Japanese food I've ever had in my entire life. How do I waste less time going to places at the wrong time of year or when there's no fish? I don't get a chance to get out a ton and want to make the most of each outing. Huge question, and there's one answer, in my opinion, is journaling. Journaling is the most critical part of knowing. If you want to catch more fish, you got to know when to go, you got to know where to go, and you got to know what to use or what's hatching. Okay, so and some fisheries have a really, really short window. Okay, so I've been journaling my fly fishing outings for over 10 years now. It's so critical. I won't mention that I've lost a number of fishing journals that still have not turned up, that still, if I were to sit here and think about it, makes me pretty upset. But definitely journaling each and every outing, not just what worked, but what didn't work. Who were you fishing with? What was hatching? What was the barometer like? What was the weather like? What was the air temperature? What was the water temperature? What techniques did you fish? What do you wish you could have done differently? What were some big wins, some key takeaways, some lessons that you learned? All of these things are so important, and I'm actually very excited to say that I've been working on a digital journal that I can provide to fly fishers to really make this process easier. I realized that I wouldn't have lost all my journals, or not all of them. I wouldn't have lost a number of my journals had I had them saved as a PDF somewhere. So in this day and age, it's nice. I'll be able to share more information on that down the road. But anyways, what I would say is journal each and every outing. I know friends that they get to fish a lot, and they make at least one fishing trip each and every month, and they know exactly where they're going, right? And if they don't, they're going with somebody who knows exactly where they're going and why they're going at that certain time of year. Again, some fisheries, that window is so short, it's so small, and you really got to hit it on the right water level. You got to hit it right on the right time of year, or you got to hit it at the right water temperature. And above and below that, by a very small margin, you're out of the game. Okay. So, anyways, that's that is so important to just keep those journals each and every time you go out. I really can't stress the importance of this. I'm excited to share the fly fishing journal that I've been working on to help you better, track your losses and your wins on the water to make fly fishing better. The more time you spend going to places, knowing why you're going there and knowing when you're going there, the easier it gets. So anyways, I really hope that these questions helped you out. I love doing Q&A Friday. If you have any fly fishing questions that you'd like answered, again, you can go to flyfishuniversity.com/questions. And before you leave here, I'd love to give you a free copy of my book, 7 Steps to Fly Fishing Success. This is really going to help you round out your fundamental fly fishing skill set. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Fly Fish University TV. If you're listening on audio on the Fly Fish University podcast, we appreciate each and every listener, every reader, everybody that sends every email. Hugely appreciated. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and hopefully you get some time on the water. See you next week.